Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and this is my very first episode covering the TNA Impact brand. I covered TNA Hard to Kill over last weekend, but up until this point, I've only ever covered Impact Wrestling. So this this is exciting for me. I get to cover a whole new thing, or at least not a whole new thing. Like I get to. This is my first official of the TNA Impact relaunch with the TNA Impact logo. They actually had they actually changed the logo to where they have the lowercase I back. They brought that back, and they're doing a good job of keeping the modern stars from the Impact Wrestling era, but putting them under that retro brand and not making it so that it's just one big nostalgia act. So I like that they're still moving forward into a modern era. And so that's pretty cool. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Lots of news. First thing I do want to talk about, we got some bad news. Yesterday it come out that Kylan King, she tore her ACL, and looks like she's going to be out. She could be out up to a year. So I know everybody was questioning and wondering why she wasn't at the Hard to Kill or Snake Eyes tapings, and it's because she's injured. Now we knew she got injured in December. Well, we didn't know how severe it was, and yeah, it looks like it's pretty bad. It's pretty severe. So get well soon, and man, that's another blow for the Knockouts division. We're losing Trinity. We lost Deanna Perrazzo. Mickey James, I don't know what's going on with her. She just took a gig over at OVW as kind of like their creative force. And so that's tough. Who knows? I mean, she always kind of comes back. So, but I don't think you can ever expect her to be around long term. It doesn't seem like that she's interested in being around anywhere long term. So at her age, and she's got plenty of money, and her husband's doing great on SmackDown. So she probably just doesn't need it. So if they have an idea for her, I get the feeling she would come back if they had an idea for her. And I don't think that her OVW ties would preclude her from doing that, because TNA and OVW have done business in the past. And at one point that was their developmental territory. So that's yeah, I get the feeling, but man, this division it's lacking some star power right now. It's lacking really top tier, like, kind of talent. We have some good wrestlers, but we don't really have. It's not as deep as it was over the summer last year, and that's what happens with TNA. Like every 6 months, this roster refreshes because they do a good job of getting these talents over, and then they just end up going back to WWE, or they go up to AEW. But that's the era that we're in, and that's the mode that they are in. And so that's always a tough thing. So tough deal, tough break for Kylan King. Hopefully she gets well soon. So yeah, that was the top story. That was the thing that had broken yesterday. But before we get into recapping Impact, I do have some more news. So Hard to Kill did some pretty big business for TNA's level, man. And they had a really good night, and you could tell because the crazies were out in full force on social media and on their podcasts and all that stuff, trying to deny their success. So like they came out and just was one insult after another, trying. I don't know what it is about this TNA that gets people so crazy, so riled up. So this idiot, stupid, dumb face, fucking loser named Justin LaBar, who does do some busted open stuff, and he's been on some pretty big websites. It kind of seemed like an offhand thing, but he on Twitter was talking with Raj Giri, and he replied to a Raj Giri tweet about TNA's Hard to Kill. I said, it was a good show. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going to pull up his tweet because I don't follow him and I don't want to search for him. But said, he made the mistake, the utter mistake of saying that if TNA, based on how great Hard to Kill was and how good it looked and all that stuff, if TNA gets a TV deal, they could be in line. They could compete for that number 2 spot. And boy, did people lose their minds. How dare you? How dare you compare them to AEW, our beloved AEW? Never do that. They've never had that. And then like it was one after another, just trashing TNA. I was just like, guys, they had a good weekend. Like it was one of their best weekends they've ever had. Like, why would you be worried about Justin LeBar, idiot, saying that TNA could come for that number 2 spot? Like, it's like that's like that guy's not living in any type of reality. It would take more than a TV deal to get them to that number 2 spot. You know, not only would it take a TV deal, like they would have to get paid a lot of money. Like I think that AEW, you know, they're on the cusp of a big giant rights fee increase. But even then, I think, you know, and I don't know the exact numbers, but they're getting a lot of money for all 3 of their shows that are on the Warner properties. So they're getting a ton of money just for the rights fees. But they're also, for their major events, they're still doing really well selling tickets. Now for their TV shows, you know, for their level, they're not, but you know, for their pay-per-view events, they are, and their pay-per-view events are doing over 130,000. So I think anytime you compare TNA to AEW, it's not a fair comparison because AEW just they have more resources, better production values, they have a lot more money, and they're just on a different level. So don't do that. Like this should be a celebration of TNA's awesome weekend, and that's where I'm going to keep my focus because I, you know, anytime you break personal records, right? It's kind of like being in the gym, okay? Like if I break a personal record for an exercise, for a lift, or for whatever, I can only compare myself to myself because I can't compare. Like I'm 40 years old. I'm 5'11". I'm 195 pounds. I can't compare myself to someone that's 6'4", 250 pounds. Like that would be a dumb thing to do, right? So I can only compare my personal records and what I'm doing and focus on me. And that's what TNA is doing. But anytime anybody brings up any other company, it's not a fair comparison because you're comparing someone that's 5'11", 195 to someone that's 6'4", 265, right? It's just not, that's just not what you can do. Or if you put it in sports terms, you know, it would be like, you know, comparing an NFL franchise to a, kind of more of an XFL, UFL franchise, right? Like they have some good talent. They have some former NFL players, right? But they don't have the deep pockets. They don't have the big money, and they don't have the assets or the resources to get top recruits from college because they're just not at that level. So just enjoy what they're doing at their level. Keep it that focus. It's not fair, right? Access TV is not really widely available. So comparing their ratings to AEW or WWE, it's not a fair comparison, right? So, but let's just keep it at what TNA was doing. And TNA sold, at least the last count was 1,630 tickets. But from what I'm being told is they were still selling tickets while the show was going on. So people, like, I think they were probably getting drunks from the craps table. And so it would not surprise me if they had over 1,700 people in that venue, which is very good. That's very good for TNA, right? And in fact, they said it was their best, their most attended show in the last decade, and their best gate of the last decade. So it says, so this is from Dave. So the first show back, Hard to Kill, was the show drew 1,630 fans. So that was based on the last count. I think that it could have been more. And basically packed with the stage set up and called by the promotion, the largest crowd and gate they had done since 2015. Most pay-per-views the company had done were from Universal in Orlando, with fans allowed in for free. There was a 2015 Bound for Glory show in Concord, North Carolina that drew 1,800, but that would be with far lower ticket prices. And there were shows in Brooklyn, New York at the baseball stadium that did more than 5,000 years back. But I that Concord, North Carolina, if that number is true, 1,800, I would question how many of those people got in for free. And it appears that based on the fact that they kept opening up more seats, like every person that was in there, at least the people that were in there by bell time, that 1,630, all those people paid for their tickets, which is great. So they did great at the gate. Obviously, they had another 1,200 in for Snake Eyes the next night, which is a massive success. It was their best TV taping they've done in 10 years. So, and of course, a lot of people want to credit Ospreay and Okada for that. But honestly, when they announced Ospreay and Okada, those tickets didn't move right away. They didn't actually move until like the 2 weeks prior to the event when they started, promoting locally. And that's what really got people in. It was local promotion and people excited about TNA. So I'm just going to give all the credit to TNA. Nothing against Ospreay and Okada, but I think this was just TNA doing their job, and so that was great. As far as pay-per-view sales, he says at press time, so at the time that he's writing this, our estimate on the pay-per-view from a television standpoint, so we're talking TV pay-per-view buys only, so buying through your cable provider, was 3,400. And if you go with the 30% television, so saying that people based on estimates, right? So this is all estimates, that you get about 30% of your audience is paying on television, meaning 30% out of 100. So the rest of the 70% is going to come from streaming. So he says if you go with the 30% television, that would be about 11,200. So if you factor in the 70% estimated buys from streaming, you're getting up to 11,200. So that's a pretty good pay-per-view number for TNA. So at the same point in time, for Bound for Glory 2023, the previous pay-per-view, that would be up from 1,800, almost double, 89% up from the last show. I said that's actually more than they were doing at the end of Spike, and probably more than one-third what they did when Kenny Omega faced Rich Swann. So Kenny Omega and Rich Swann were in the 20,000 in the 20s there, probably bordering on close to 30,000, which was their highest mark dating back to when Hulk Hogan and Kurt Angle were there and they were on Spike. And he goes on to say, keep in mind that the figures we have indicated last year's 1,800 ended up at 6,900, but that's with a very suspicious number from one system. He said, which was double checked and still came up the same. It was just weird. But if you factor one system out, the numbers were almost identical, with Bound for Glory being less than 25 more buys nationally with the late buys. This will surely finish well ahead. I'd figure there'd be curiosity at the first show over with the new name, but in a few months, things will revert back to normal and the name will be irrelevant to the attendance and buys. So, yeah. So a big increase over over Bound for Glory, which is great. Like, so you can only compare them to themselves because they're only in their own little area. And a lot of people get focused on who's number one, who's number two, who's number three, who's number four, like TNA didn't care about any of that. TNA is in TNA world doing TNA shit, minding their own TNA business. And I think that TNA fans, you hardcores out there, need to stick with that. Don't worry about what other companies are doing. Just, enjoy each company in their own separate universes, in their own world, right? Don't focus. Like it's not like competitive sports with one company versus another. Like, get that out of your fucking heads. It's so stupid. But it was a smashing success for them. The rebrand is here. The rebrand is doing great, and good for them. And also, we do have some free agency notes. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about it one time, and then I'm going to say it here, and then I'm just going to move on, and I want all of you to move on with me, okay? And I want you to say it with me. Say it at the same time. Let's all be in unison on this. Let's all wrap our heads and get our minds right. Let's all figure this out together. Kazuchika Okada is now a free agent in New Japan Pro Wrestling, okay? He's leaving New Japan, and he's going to be on TNA this week, and it's going to spark a lot of the most hardcore fans of TNA to think that Okada is going to come to TNA. And now I want you guys to be in unison on this. I want you guys to live in a reality-based world. I want you guys to get your minds right. And I want you to be on the same team as me. And just say it with me. Okada is not coming to TNA. Okay, I'm going to give you one more opportunity. Okada is not coming to TNA. Okay, and I want you to say that over and over again. And if you start to believe that he is coming to TNA, what I want you to do is go to your local middle school. I want you to go up on their chalkboard. And I want you to write that shit 5,000 times on that fucking chalkboard. Okay, because it is not happening. this is a 2-horse race. This is WWE or AEW, and they are going to throw so much money at that man. It's going to be ridiculous. And there's no amount of and there's no possible way that TNA can compete with that. It just isn't happening. The resources are different. They're in different universes. They're in different stratospheres when it comes to the amount of resources they have. No, I get it. Anthem has a lot of money. They do. They ain't got that kind of money. They just don't. They have a lot of money, but TNA doesn't, because TNA gets a budget, right? TNA doesn't get a rights fee from Access Television. They get a budget. Okay, it's a little bit different. So they don't have expendable income. What they get, they use up. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in a resource management position. And I have, to where I've had to manage a budget, and I've been managing a budget for my section I'm in a different position now where I don't have to, but for the previous 5 or 6 years, I was in charge of the budget. And you get a set budget every year, and in the fiscal year, and it's from October 1st through September 31st or September 30th. I can't remember, but you get a fiscal year budget. So your budget's set. Okay. And you have to use up that money within that budget. At least in the military, you have to use up that money within that budget. And if you have a surplus at the end of the year, this is why DoD gets the biggest budget. If you don't use it, you lose it essentially. So you don't get that money next year. Okay, well, you don't need as much money as we thought you did. And I would assume that similar stuff applies, to where they get their set budget for the year, for production, for talent, for all that stuff from Anthem. And it's set for the year. And if they want to go outside of that budget, they then have to submit a request to get a budget increase, specific. Or in my case, if I need to purchase a new piece of equipment, I have to, submit a new item request and say, here's what I need it for, here's the cost, and then it'll go through the proper channels. And if they have the expendable income, they'll get it for me. If not, we have to wait till the new fiscal year starts, and then we submit that with our annual budget. So that's different than, say, AEW. They don't get a budget from Warner. They get a rights fee, and they can use that money however they want. Different. So yeah, Okada's not coming over. Now, another new free agent in New Japan, who I think is very interesting, that I could see coming over to TNA, is Tama Tonga. He, spoiler alert, he just dropped his title to Evil, the never openweight title that he had just defeated Shingo Takagi earlier this month at Wrestle Kingdom, and one of the best matches of the night. And if somebody said that was the best match of the night, I would disagree, but I could see why you would say that. So it was just an incredible. I think Dave gave it a 5, boy. I think he gave it a 5. So that was an incredible match. And his last year in New Japan has actually been quite good. He had a good run. But he is very hot and cold. And so he's also 40. He doesn't want to keep traveling to Japan. And the yen is down in Japan, and that's why we're seeing Ospreay and Okada and Jay White and all these people leaving, is because, the money that was there at one point in time is just not there. And when they're selling these tickets, because the yen is down, it doesn't go as far. And so, and filling up those arenas doesn't get you as much money as it used to. And so, because they have to convert that into American dollars, and the conversion just it's not good for them. So, Tama Tonga is now officially a free agent. He's finished up with New Japan. And I know a lot of people think that he could go get involved with that Bloodline storyline. I just don't see it. I really don't see it. He's, a few years ago, if the storyline had been going, I could have seen the Tongans come in and start, wreaking havoc in WWE, as a unit. Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and Hikuleo, the brothers. I could have seen that, and then doing a feud with the Bloodline when they were as a unit, or if the Bloodline turned on Roman Reigns could have brought in, his Tongan second cousins, Haku's kids. I could have seen that. So, but I just I just don't see it because, like I said, he's he's guys in his 40s now. He's still like he's a good wrestler, but I just don't think that he he would be a draw to the American audience. I don't think he's ever been over in the States, and honestly, he was never really a top guy in New Japan. He was always kind of a mid-carder in New Japan. So I just don't see AEW or WWE bringing him in. AEW, I would say, is like 100% out. I just don't see that they would care about Tonga or the God or any form or fashion. I just don't see it. I think WWE would bring in Hikuleo in a heartbeat if they had the opportunity, and I was surprised that Hikuleo stuck around with New Japan a little bit longer. But I think once his deal's up, I could see him being WWE bound. But TNA, I think they would like him. I do. I think they would want to bring him in. I don't think he would cost that much. I think that he would be making upper tier TNA money, and I think they would like him. And I think that he's got the New Japan cred, and that's what they like. They like guys from New Japan. They like guys from WWE, as we're going to get to in a little bit. They like guys off of AEW television. They're having a hard time discovering new talent and pushing their own. And yeah, that's been difficult for them. So they like to go to those wells. He's a 40-year-old guy, but they just signed Kushida, and they just signed Trent Seven, a couple 40-year-olds off New Japan and WWE television. So I could see them doing that. I don't think that it would change anything for TNA. I don't think that he would add business, but I could see him being, filling out the roster, having a run towards the title, never being the champion, having really good matches with, the usual types, Alexander and Speedball and those guys. I could see him challenging Moose for the title on a monthly Impact Plus special, and then just kind of being a middle of the road guy if they brought him in. And I honestly, I'm not predicting they will, but I think that that's a possibility. So that was very interesting. Now let's get to the tapings. And I'm going to do something spoiler free first, and then I'm going to go into a spoiler or two spoilers. And at that point, if you don't want to hear the spoilers, I'll give you a chance to skip. So, not a spoiler. Fightful Select is reporting that backstage at the tapings, they did not appear on camera, at least as of Friday night. So I'm recording this on Saturday morning. So at least as of Friday night's tapings, Mace and Mansoor, the Maximum male models from WWE, were backstage. I was saying all along as I felt like these guys would be coming in. Now they didn't appear on camera; they were backstage. Maybe that was just like their, an introductory type of thing. It would not surprise me for them to come in. They're a bottom card comedy act from WWE. And Scott D'Amore loves those. He's got Santino. He brought in Dango. He had Heath. He had Brian. He has Brian Myers. If you were being unfunny on WWE's undercard, Scott D'Amore will love you. And they brought in No Way Jose at one point. They have Oleg Prudius. Yeah. So it's like, yep, that is a Scott D'Amore hire. That 100%. I don't know that they're signed. There's been no report that they're signed, but they were absolutely backstage, and that was being reported by Fightful Select. So, and you know what? And I like those guys. I don't know if they're like a particularly a great tag team, but I think they've been out there on the indies hustling, and like those are the types of, like, if you're a WWE failure, if you're a guy that just could not make it there, and you go out on the indies and hustle when you get fired, that's the kind of drive I'd be interested in. Like self-starter, ain't got to tell you to go promote yourself, switch up your character a little bit, go out there and make a name for yourself. These guys are working all the indies. They're doing Game Changer, Wrestling Revolver. They're doing all the indies, much like Mustafa Ali and Dolph Ziggler. And so they're out there getting after it. So they have my attention. I typically I'm not like, hey, let's not rely on these failures from WWE, but unless, of course, they're out there hustling, and those guys are out there hustling, and I respect it. I respect young men that hustle, young men and women that get out there and hustle when they lose their dream job. So I'm cool with that signing. I'm cool. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what gimmick they'd be doing. I don't know any of that stuff, but I'm cool with that idea. I'm good with that. Also backstage, a guy that's been there before, and I'm just surprised he hasn't been back. Alex Zane. So he's been working New Japan lately, but he had done several Impact matches last year. So I was just surprised that they never kept him around. I was honestly surprised AEW didn't sign him. So he's still a free agent. But he's another guy that's been around a long time, been working indies, been doing did a lot of tours in New Japan last year, and I'm quite shocked that he was never brought back, but he was backstage at the tapings. I don't know what that means. He was an NXT guy, so I get the feeling he just lives in Orlando. Same with Mason Mansoor. So they live in the area, and maybe they were just introducing themselves to Alex Zane, and he knows Scott D'Amore. He's been working there before, so maybe he's just trying to get a booking. So hopefully they bring him back. Now, I'm going to talk about 2 spoilers, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to skip. I'm not going to tell you match results. So if you're interested in match results, you can go ahead and read the spoilers. I think Gerard has them on bodyslam.net. So, Simon Grimm from the Vaudevillains, Simon Gotch from the Vaudevillains, NXT Failure from 2016, showed up at the taping last night and attacked Josh Alexander. TNA had a good run. The relaunch was good. It's now over. We're back in the Impact Wrestling era. This reminds me of one of the times they went to Florida and they were in Orlando, and Big Con came out to challenge Josh Alexander, and nobody fucking cared. And they did a match with Alexander and Big Con, and then eventually they signed Big Con. I don't know what the storyline is, and that has not been reported, but yeah, Simon Gotch, Simon Grimm, former MLW Contra member, has made his way to the Impact Zone, and he has attacked Josh Alexander. Look, if they gave the guy a tryout on Explosion, I wouldn't be so fucking mad. But they brought him in, and he attacked their top guy, which means they might push this motherfucker, and I'm not interested. He sucks. He's not any good. He's not interesting. The Vaudevillains I thought were a funny act in the beginning, and then it got old pretty quick, which is why when they got brought up to the main roster, they flamed out within weeks, and they got broken up. And the next thing you know, Matthew Raywalt singing, Rusev's entrance theme. So yeah, this is another example of a creatively bankrupt company that can't find any new talent, so they just go back to the scrap heap of WWE. That's what this is. It is a failure in leadership. They just maybe they're out of ideas, or maybe they're not scouting the indies hard enough, because there are guys out there that they could have brought in that at a much cheaper price that would work hard and want to make their name. But instead, you're bringing a guy that's in like his mid to late 30s off the scrap heap of WWE, that when he got fired, he didn't go out there and hustle. He just didn't. He did some shots with MLW. He did some shots with Noah, but he wasn't out there, changing up his deal, working hard, getting after it. He wasn't. He just resting on his laurels. That's it. Fuck him. And then the other guy is Big Con. I know he was signed here, but when he wasn't in Vegas, I was like hoping that he was never coming back. But no, he came back, and he attacked Diener and PCO after they had a match. So it looks like they might be trying to push that guy, but he sucks too. I'm just sick of him. There's nothing interesting about Big Con. Like, his name's stupid. His face is stupid. He looks stupid. His whole family's probably full of stupid people. And he's, another middle-aged guy that has done nothing outside of WWE, and he's just stealing money from TNA. And good for him. Look, hey, go get your money, dude. If they're stupid enough to hire you, fantastic. Go get it. But he was under contract here, so he's fulfilling his contractual obligations. But I was certainly hoping that they had moved on from him. But no, he's back. So those are the only 2 spoilers I'm going to get into. The spoilers are done. So now let's get into the actual TV show this week. And I gotta say, man, it was awesome. I love the new look. I love the look. I love the rebrand. I love everything they've done so far. And I thought this was the best episode of Impact that I have seen in a long time. I thought from beginning to end, I thought it was fantastic, and we're gonna go through it right now. I'm trying to see who wrote this for the Observer. Oh, Josiah, brother Josiah, my homie. He says TNA opened with a recap of Hard to Kill, running down all the biggest matches. Yep, and then in the opening contest, Jake Something defeated Kushida, Trey Miguel, Laredo Kid, Mike Bailey, and Vikingo. And this is exactly how they should have started the show. If you were to ask me how they should start the first episode of the TNA Impact era of the relaunch, and I would have said, get a bunch of X Division dudes and let them go fucking crazy. No psychology, no nothing. Just move after move after move after move, and that's exactly what they did. X Division craziness, and it looks like after years and years of me screaming at the mountaintops to push Jake Something, it looks like we're getting there. Jake Something wins. I'll be honest, I don't remember if they said this was a number one contender match or not. This might have just been a match, but if it's not a number one contender match, I think they need to parlay this into Jake Something facing Chris Sabin soon, and then he needs to go on his Samoa Joe run this year. He's got the promos aren't there. Okay, I think that's a weakness of his, and I think that can be corrected. So promos aren't there, and I get that, but he's got everything else. He's got the look. He's got physical charisma. He's got in-ring charisma. He's got the moves. He can work with big guys. He can work with little guys, and he looks tremendous. And I think that this is the year of Jake Something, and this is the year that we need to get Jake Something on a Samoa Joe run. Meaning, and what do I mean by that? Well, in 2005, when they brought Samoa Joe in, it was 04 or 05. I can't remember. I think it was 05. When they brought him in from Ring of Honor, he came in, killed some motherfuckers, won the X Division title, went on an epic X Division title run, and then, eventually got himself to the World Heavyweight Championship. That's what I want to see out of Jake Something this year. And they got a lot of really good wrestlers that can make him look tremendous on the way up there. And then him being in the X Division and then moving to moving up to the main event level, I think is the way to go. And Josiah says, awesome match, no better way to start off the return of TNA. Yeah, and I totally agree. And then, so Miguel hit a poison rana on something, which was crazy. And Kushida locked the hoverboard lock on Miguel, but Vikingo cut him off with a rope walk into a double stomp. Everyone exchanged a bunch of big moves. Even I couldn't keep up with it. Laredo Kid hit Mike Bailey with a Spanish fly, and then Jake Something hit Into the Void, or Abyss's Black Hole Slam on Laredo Kid for the victory. So yeah, my guy Laredo Kid still taking Now, Ospreay was then backstage and cut a promo on Josh Alexander. This is a really good promo, but goddamn, they got to work on the lighting backstage. That is one thing they have not upgraded. It's like you guys got to build a little studio backstage for these things with full lights, okay? Don't just use the lights already there. Like, actually pay for some lights to look professional, like your big brothers AEW and your uncles WWE. Okay, look professional. It's not that hard. And then we got a hype video for Ash by Elegance. Okay. Nothing about this promo makes me want to see the former Dana Brooke wrestle. I thought this was filmed very well. I liked it. Like, it looked like a perfume commercial, but nothing about it makes me want to see her wrestle. So we're not there yet. So we're going to get some more vignettes. I know she's going to be wrestling tonight in Orlando, and we'll see. But she was not a good wrestler in WWE, which is why we're getting this character, right? If you brought her in as like awesome wrestler Dana Brooke, everybody called bullshit. But now she's just going to be playing a gimmick, and that's fine. But nothing about the gimmick has me locked in yet. And then for all of you that thought this was a ripoff of Timeless Tony, like, and I know I brought it up on Hard to Kill, like, she kind of looks like Timeless Tony, but we got to give it like, some time. Let her cut a promo. Let's see what this whole thing's about. Yeah, but a lot of people said, there's even people that are like writing stories with the headline, "Is Dana Brooke ripping off Timeless Tony?" Total clickbait horseshit. You're all fucking losers, and I hope you get the gout. Okay. But so this is nothing like Timeless Tony. This is completely different, and good for her for doing something completely different. I respect that. I do respect that. Oh, and Josiah says the same thing. So yeah, I completely respect that. So let's just see. We're going to give it some time, but as of right now, I'm not that interested. Giselle Shaw cut a promo about winning the Ultimate X and said that Jordan Grace needed to watch out. I'm thinking they'll do that match at the New Orleans show coming up. I think it's either I think it's No Surrender in Orlando or in New Orleans. And Gail Kim walked up and said that Shaw should think about doing things alone because Shaw was able to win without the Shantaraj. Shaw brushed Kim off and walked away. Then we got Zaya Brookside defeating Tasha Steelz. This match was okay. I was surprised that Zaya Brookside beat Steelz. Steelz is kind of a push talent here, but they're wanting to get Brookside going. A lot of people told me that Zaya Brookside was not any good. She seemed perfectly fine here. I thought this was a good little 3.5, 4 minute television match. I thought this was okay. So I'm not saying she's tremendous, but people said she stinks, and I just don't see it. Now, we might see it later if she has a longer match, but this was perfectly fine. And then we get a recap of AJ Francis laying out Joe Hendry after Hendry did the music video. And then Hendry was backstage and talked about being chokeslammed by Francis. He said that he didn't blame Francis because he was the Cheez-It champion and had tons of challengers. Hendry said it wasn't a total loss because he got a free laptop, and the laptop was trash, though. So he was throwing it out with the rest of the garbage. And the camera zoomed out to show DJ Who Kid in a garbage can moaning in pain. And I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, it looks like we're going to continue this feud with AJ Francis and Hendry. And then the Grizzled Young Vets defeated Frankie Kazarian and Eric Young, the TNA Originals. And I like this. I thought this was a good match, and but it could have been better. But they sacrificed some of the match to tell a good story. And the story is that the Grizzled Young Vets are this young, up and coming, badass tag team on their way to a tag title shot, and they took advantage of Eric Young and beat him, and Frankie Kazarian got frustrated, and after the match was over, Kazarian turned heel on Eric Young, and that's exactly how we needed to start this new TNA era, with a heel turn, and with something different for Frankie, because Frankie has mostly been stale. Okay. He's had some good feuds. He's had some very good matches, but he hasn't done anything that was really all that interesting that's going to grab people's attention. So I'm liking a heel turn here. Let's do something different with Frankie. And I always thought that he was a really good heel. And so good match. A good match, good heel turn. I'm excited to see where this is going, and I'm here for a Frankie versus Eric Young match on a big stage. So good for them. And then the System were at a restaurant. They're all dressed up, doing the whole thing. So it looks like we're, kind of a four horsemen-y type of deal, main event mafia type of deal. So that's kind of what we're getting with the System, with Moose and Myers and Eddie Edwards and Alicia. I think they need a new member, maybe Frankie, or I would kind of like to see a super heavyweight, somebody to eventually turn on Moose and challenge him. And I know that's been done to death. I know, Sting and Flair did that with the Horsemen, and Batista and Triple H did that, and all these other factions did that. I get it, but it works every time, and I like it. So, but yeah, they were at a restaurant and they're talking about a big plan for them. Moose is big into cigars now, so there you go. And then Nick Nemeth made his entrance, and he was just excited to be there. Guy looks like $1 million, looks like a big star. The crowd treated him like he was a big star. He came out, talked about being excited to be in TNA, and then he was there to prove himself. And then Macklin come out, cut him off. And Macklin then proceeded to upstage Nick Nemeth in the promo area. Macklin is the best promo in this company. He's one of the best promos in wrestling, and he completely overshadowed Nick Nemeth. I took him to promo school. And I loved it, because my guy, he's my guy. And if you disagree with me, you can suck my whole butt. He's fantastic. He said that Macklin said that Nemeth was just a phony, and that he never took the top spot he supposedly won. He said if they faced off against each other, all the people would be asking whatever happened to Dolph Ziggler. And then they got into a little bit of a fight. Nemeth hit the Danger Zone. That's the new name. And laid out Macklin. So that's the new feud. That's the new feud right there. And I think we won't be getting that at No Surrender, because Nemeth will be in Japan for No Surrender. And speaking of Nemeth, I listened to the Flagship with Lanza and Rich, and they have some. they have some connections to TNA. Let's just say that. They're not fans of TNA. And in fact, they were quite brutal to Hard to Kill. Although saying it was a good event, but it was kind of like missable. But they were pretty bullish on the fact that Nemeth was in fact signed to this company, and that once he fills his dates that elsewhere, you're probably going to see him full time in TNA going forward. Like they were like, yeah, once so that was that. I kind of talked about that on my Hard to Kill review, and with Nemeth, being the big signing, that it might have taken them a little bit of time to get that deal done. So while they were doing that, he started booking other dates elsewhere while still leaving that 13th open. And so he actually, and tonight he's going to be in Puerto Rico fulfilling a date. And then of course, during No Surrender weekend, he'll be in Japan. So they're of the belief that, you won't be seeing him doing that going forward. Not that he won't be working elsewhere. Like he's still going to do he'll probably still do some New Japan stuff, but it looks like TNA is going to be his priority. At least I hope. And that's the way they phrased it. They didn't report that. They're not reporters, but they were of that opinion that that's going to be the case. So if so, cool. Awesome. Jordan Grace is backstage talking about winning the Knockouts Championship. Trinity walked up and said for a rematch, and then we're getting that next week on Impact. So cool. And then Jai Vidal came to the ring, talking about moving away from Las Vegas because it sucked. And then Vidal said no one could beat him up. And then PCO came out and did just that and beat his ass. Jay Vidal is funny. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin were backstage. Shelley talked about how they had a big 6-man tag next week and introduced the big free agent who actually hit free agency just moments before this aired, Kazuchika Okada. And Okada said he'd be returning to the TNA next week. And then Josiah goes on to say, this is astonishing considering the announcement that he is leaving New Japan just broke within the last hour. And here he is talking about a 6-man tag on Impact next week. I think that we could get a good rating pop for this. Unfortunately for TNA, Access TV is no longer on Verizon, which I believe covers portions of New York and the Northeast. So, which is why I don't think we got a good rating this week. So, I don't know that we'll even get ratings talk going forward, unfortunately. And then we go to Josh Alexander versus Will Ospreay. And I'll be honest, guys, I watched Wrestle Kingdom. I watched Hard to Kill. I watched Battle in the Valley. I've seen some Noah matches. I've seen some All Japan matches. I watched Katsuhiko Nakajima versus Kento Miyahara. And I watched Keno versus Go Shiozaki over the weekend. I've seen Ospreay versus Okada. I've seen, John Moxley versus Shingo Takagi. I've seen Okada versus Bryan Danielson. I've seen just so many tremendous matches this year, and this is right at the top. I love this so much. I don't do over 5 stars. It's not my deal. I don't actually rate matches. That's not what I do. But if there is such a thing as a 5-star match, this is a 5-star match, 100%. I love this match so much. This is going to go down as very likely the greatest match in TNA history. I have it above the Speedball match from Bound for Glory because this is more my style, more of a hard-hitting style, more emotion. There was more emotion in this match because Josh Alexander, he's really good at playing on your emotions. I love the fire-ups, man. Just got me fucking pumped. I love it when he took off his stupid headset and threw it at Ospreay and like flipping each other off and just smacking the hell out of each other. And you got the tiger driver through the table, and then you got another tiger driver in the ring, and then you got Ospreay going for a Styles Clash, and then it getting reversed and into a ankle lock, and then Josh Alexander goes for the Styles Clash and it gets it, and you get the pile driver on the ramp, and they threw everything in this match. This was Ospreay's love letter to TNA, and I thought it was a tremendous match, and it's going to go down as probably the greatest match in TNA history. And Dave Meltzer just watched it last night, and he agrees with me, and he puts this as one of the top matches of the year. And so, I reserve the right to change my mind about it being the best match of January, because there have been so many good matches, but so far 2024 is looking really good. If you're just a match quality person and all you want to do is watch good matches, TNA has put this up on YouTube for free. in its entirety. And if you're a YouTube premium subscriber like me, you can get it commercial free. But let's see what Josiah says about it. He said, this match was unbelievable and completely stole the show. This will be one of TNA's best matches of the year and potentially one of their best matches ever. Alexander continues to be the best wrestler in TNA history. Oh, easy there, Tiger. Actually, he's probably not far off, honestly. I'm still a Kurt Angle guy, though. And Kurt Angle. I put him right up there with Angle, AJ, and Joe. Like, those are my, like, as far as like match quality TNA wrestlers, like that's probably Kurt Angle, Josh Alexander, AJ Styles, and Samoa Joe is probably my Mount Rushmore of my 4 favorites of all time. And Ospreay proves again that he's one of the best, if not the best, in the world. Outstanding match, should be on the list of match of the year candidates for 2024. And I'm not going to go blow by blow because this match was, well over 20 minutes and they hit every move possible. And it was just a fantastic, fantastic match. And highly recommended. If you're only going to watch it, it's actually on their YouTube channel for free. So you can watch the whole thing. But it's probably my favorite TNA match of all time, to be honest with you. And I know I just watched it 2 nights ago, but I've seen it twice already. And I just love it so much. And I just cannot recommend that match more. And I've actually gotten into arguments. I've actually revoked several privileges of certain people of rating matches ever again because they didn't give it a 5. There are certain people that because it's TNA, they won't give it a 5. They just won't, because they see it as being beneath them, although TNA is above them. And I'll tell you why. Because TNA is awesome right now. It's on a good run. Now, the Orlando tapings could completely fool me. The Orlando tapings, some of the spoilers I saw, might turn things, they might be doing a 180 from the Vegas weekend. I don't know, but I think that this was the best possible way to kick off the new era of TNA Impact, and I'm here for it. I'm excited for it, and I love this match so much. Please go out of your way to watch it. Tell me what you think about that match in the comments on this video or on Patreon. Thank you to the Patreon subscriber, Dre, for watching this along with me. I know I didn't announce this, so I only had one live, but I do appreciate you being here, homie. And I appreciate you guys being subscribers. And I'm really excited that the weekly show is back to where I can do this every single week. So thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate your patronage and keeping this show on the air. And it's going to continue in this form going forward every single week. So I really do appreciate that. But that's going to be enough out of me. And until next week, mahalo.